I want to feel like a teenage VC, but Connie and us go way back. I think it's been now many years, and it's been amazing. And like we are very grateful for all the incredible stuff that you do, and we're very happy to be supporters. And thank you all for coming. Great to see you all.
Thank you so much. So guys, I thought, Viviana, you're relatively new to Felicis, although I guess not so new. You joined in 2021 after spending several years at Emergence Capital. I know that you seem like you're involved in a lot of companies already, including the app development company Supabase, the database startup Mother Duck, and the very buzzy content creation company Runway.
That's right. It's been busy.
Yeah,
it's been a busy 2 years.
I'm sure.
Only the best ones.
So I thought we would start. I think a lot of people here tonight are very interested in AI. They're trying to figure out how people are, thinking about investing in these things. One thing I thought I would ask you about is, I think it was maybe yesterday I saw yet another story of Google researchers peeling off and starting a company. I think maybe it's called Uncharted Labs. And they've already got funding. And it just seems like I see that headline every other day. Researchers leave, mega company, funding, boom. So how do you differentiate yourselves as a team? How do you get in front of these deals? Because they do seem like they're coming together so quickly.
It's a great question. Aydin is probably more well-equipped as the founder of the firm. I think my background is go-to-market. I spent 17 years building enterprise SaaS software companies, and so when I partner with founders, they are incredibly excited to have a different point of view on their board. They look at me and they say, okay, I want a go-to-market partner. I already have someone who's deep in finance, someone who's deep in product, and that's really how I differentiate. And then from a firm perspective, Aydin, of course, you can talk about our 1% pledge, and by all means, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is kind of the firm differentiation, and we are trying to make a brand that's built on the foundation of trust, and that's why we have launched initiatives like Founder Pledge, which is the mental support for the founders. But coming back to the Google question, it's funny, I was at Google. I wasn't there much later after Jeff Dean, and it was only 30 people. Now it's 200,000 people. So a lot of these people are family. We know them, so that's one huge advantage. And even the Facebook Meta people, I joked that the day I left Google, I did a count, and 1,500 people that were at Facebook came from Google. I joked that if it wasn't for Google, Facebook Meta wouldn't exist today. And a lot of these people, the reality is AI was a very small group, and there were not a lot of people. So there was very small, concentrated group of people that did amazing research. So it's not a surprise that with the hotness of AI, almost everybody's trying to get a piece of that pie. And so I think the key thing to be successful here is I hope all of their projects really work out, but I think we are thesis-driven as well. So in addition to firm differentiation, we try to really do a good job of hey, listen, there are certain areas that we have confidence in terms of, hey, this is really going to pick up, and we're educated about it, we're informed already, we have conviction, so we try to go after that. And the reality is you don't have to be in every AI company to do well, you just have to be in the right ones, and that's what matters. But in overall, I'm just really happy there was a lot of activity. So people in AI, it's picking up the startup ecosystem again. For all of you aspiring founders, I hope all of you find success in some way. And it's nice that it's kind of bringing some positivity back into our ecosystem.
Absolutely. One thing, so you show up prepared, essentially. But I wondered, too, when I see these people spinning out, obviously not everybody's cut out to be a founder, no matter how smart you are. So how do you sort of distinguish from, how do you decide who is going to be a successful team here? Is it kind of social proof?
I hope that we're not making our decisions just on social proof. There are some really important things. For instance, in terms of their background, there are a lot of AI researchers, but some of the top ones have the highest number of citations. Then there is research people worked on, and some research is much more broad-reaching, much more critical than others. For instance, when we were working with Runway, they actually co-author Stable Diffusion, and it was really important. And they were arguably one of maybe 20 people in that area. So I think part of it is, look, just because you're very smart, you're an expert in an area, building a company is not an easy thing. You mentioned these companies. I always say that if there was Newtonian law of gravity, the kind of similar law in venture is that when you go against the markets will always win. So what market you pick is very important, and we need to separate exciting research and brilliant ideas from what could actually transform into a company in terms of how critical is that, and then how busy is it? Like, I think one of the other like brutal laws that I learned since I left Google is that you have to really pick your area, because if you're going against incumbents that have amazing distribution, for instance, like if I could like mention, like you mentioned Canva, we're also investors in Notion. Like Canva has 170 million users, Google has several billion, and Notion has 80 million users. I think what people are now appreciating is that it's much easier for somebody that has 100 million users to put an AI feature, charge $1 a month, than for a new company to come up with a brilliant product. And as much as it's like even 10x better, it's so difficult to get that extra distribution. So that's where you have to really make a judgment call in terms of, hey, listen, like how critical is this? And is this really gonna fight against the incumbents? Or is this truly have a chance of carving a niche of his own? And that's why there are like much fewer companies that can rise above that noise. Like Runway is a good example. And we try to look at companies that can be a platform, that can be a standard, but also have like deep moats, which means that it has to have very original IP and multiple elements that make them different.
And back to that quick point, Connie, I mean, does the founder know how to leverage that distribution? So Chris was very methodical. Now as a partnership, Runway has a partnership with Canva, has a partnership with Getty. And so these are some of the things that you have to look for when you're backing some of these AI researchers, which is, do they have that commercial go-to-market mind? Right. And I certainly spent a lot of time with them on that, and that's part of what we look for as well.
That's great. I thought that deal with Getty was really interesting. Runway plus Getty, to sort of make sure that Getty wants to make sure that it's sort of its content is, I don't know, ethically presented. That's not the right wording, but I do wonder about Runway. I mean, Runway is very conscientious about that. Would that make a difference to you if it was not? Was that sort of part of the pitch?
I mean, I think one of the things that's really important for us is that we also really care about our LPs and we care about the founders. One of the reasons we are not the biggest VC is because we're also parents, and I want to be able to go back home to my family and say, today we made a difference because the company we backed is doing something good. That's why we have companies that trying to cure cancer, have cured cancer, diagnose cancer, like Runway, like Canva, like make sure that creativity pervades in the world, and not just for people that can afford $1,000, but people that can only afford $2 and still can like unleash creativity. And Shopify, I mean, there are millions more entrepreneurs in the world and people that would never be able to be a founder and have a business because of Shopify. So I think the mission really matters to us, and we are like all immigrants and have immigrant like hustle, and a lot of our companies is like democratizing something really critical for a lot of people that really need that. And that's like a really good formula for finding successful companies. So that absolutely matters what the company does, what the founders care about, what the culture and mission is, and we really pay close attention to it.
I also wanted to back up a minute. You were talking about these companies with hundreds of millions of users and also lots of resources. That's another concern, obviously, when you're talking about a small team. How are they able to compete for talent? Compete, economically for talent? I mean, I see Google's laying off a lot of people. I don't know if that's impacting anything, but.
Viv, did you want to?
I mean, we can tag team this one. I think it's hard, right? I mean, you're right. I think we were just having this conversation with several of our AI companies on just the war for talent is absolutely brutal. It's a board level conversation when you have Google, like Meta, et cetera, offering over $1 million packages. And so it really comes down to finding these folks at an early stage, giving them a large equity package, and hopefully they believe in the mission of building an iconic category-defining company, right? And so it really, to me, that's what has worked for us, but it is incredibly hard right now.
I think just to add to Viv, so you just asked, one of the things that might or might not be obvious, the way that we care about the mission, future employees also care about it. People that are very smart and like, there is a lot of resources and wealth, and like people want to make a decision for the right reasons. So the mission matters, but also like who you work with also matters. So one of the things that I learned from being at Google, like having worked with like Jeff Teen and others, the world's smart and best people want to work with other world's smart best people. So if you start with an A team, an A+ team, you're much more likely, everything else being equal, the details that Viv mentioned. But if you're starting with like a B team, and look, you can have amazing research, you can have amazing degrees, but when it, there's only so few people that are really well respected in the industry. Everybody does their research the same way they do their homework on us. if we didn't do a good job and we didn't have a reputation, we wouldn't even be able to stand in front of you tonight. It's literally 16 years of like every day of hustle trying to make a difference for founders, and that's what basically earned us the right to talk with them. And I think it's similar for the companies that if you don't have a good story, if you don't have a mission, and you don't have A+ team, I don't think you're going to have a great success in getting the very best people.
What about go-to-market? Is that much different when you're dealing with some of the companies that you're dealing with now versus sort of more traditional enterprise companies?
I mean, we could spend all day talking about this, honestly, and we don't have very much time to have a piece coming out on this. But yes, it is quite different, go-to-market in the AI era versus what it was for the last 10, 20 years with SaaS. I mean, a couple of things that we talk about a lot is like speed of iteration, right? It used to be like you could launch a web page and launch a couple features over a couple months, and that was enough. But now, I mean, the AI companies launch new features on a daily basis, right? And those are always the best performing features. We talk a lot about community, that being, I mean, companies are launched on Discord now. Like that is in effect a marketing channel. Are you thinking about that? So yes, I think it's quite different, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, and I think Viv really touched on something important. So I think one of the ways that you can make a very complex investment decision and focus on a very few simple things and get it right. Today we were having another conversation with a very big entity that literally engineers this billion-dollar exits, and they said even like they mentioned a public company of like 20 billion plus size, they have everything, but it's very difficult for them to be able to build a community, and they really want to find a company that already has a fervent community. So I'm glad that Viv mentioned this because often community is not associated with marketing. We think of marketing and go-to-market as like Google ad dollars and PR and all of that. But the real power move today is to have a very loyal group of users. And in fact, we mentioned, Canva and Notion. When we've invested in Notion, Notion didn't even have a single user. And it took them 5 years of very hard work to get the first core group of users. But 10 years later, now they can leverage all that work. And it was all because they started with a core group of users that found something in that, and then it scaled from that. And today it's that. It was the same for Canva. They basically started, the founders were actually teaching people how to use Photoshop, and they were like, there has to be a better solution, so we're going to start a company. Shopify started because they wanted to build a snowboard store, and they were like, there's no good tools to do this, so maybe that's what we should really be doing instead. So a lot of our companies and founders have felt the pain, and we're like, wow, there is so much pain that maybe that's what we should do to solve. And if that market is big enough, it's also very inspiring to people to come join that company.
So sometimes a product is so good that it takes off like wildfire. I feel like Notion, I was hearing about Notion really soon after it was founded. I mean, everybody just loved it immediately. Viviana, I just want to ask you, we've got to wrap it up unfortunately, but because I know that in your earlier career you were focused on marketing, and I'd seen you say something really interesting to me, which was that you thought if a company has the right marketing strategy, it can really change the trajectory of a company. Because I think a lot of companies do sort of underestimate marketing. I was just curious. We just saw 2 products really take off, or at least capture everybody's imagination: the Humane AI pin and then the Rabbit R1 device. And they had such different approaches. I think the Rabbit device was rolled out in a conference room at a casino during CES. Very low level. Humane, it was sort of like this 6-month buildup, and then it released it to a small number of reporters. I think they both went well. I just was wondering, what's more your style, and what did you think of those different approaches, if you thought about them at all?
I don't know that I've heard of the second launch. I obviously saw the Humane launch, and I actually would love to buy one. I haven't bought one yet, but it looks amazing and incredibly interesting. I don't know if you've probably seen all the demos.
It's great. Also, it's interesting. I'm so curious what you're gonna say. But a lot of great products follow science fiction. And, it was one of those things. Hey, are we going to have something that's omnipresent and is very easy to use that you don't even think of using it is always there?
I mean, you have to do what's true to you. There isn't a one-size-fits-all, you have to do this. It is look at your product. For Humane, it made perfect sense to launch the way that they did. Obviously, build up all this quiet buzz, a lot of anticipation. So it just depends. And so this is some of the conversations that I have with founders all the time. It just depends on the market they're in, who they're selling to, who their buyer is. But the best products don't win, right? It's very easy to copy. I mean, we're seeing that today, any product. And so I think the companies that are different, look different, act different, talk differently to their users are the ones that are going to stand out and frankly win.
Yeah. The one thing I will add very briefly what Viv said, we have a company value at Felicis that we want to be an original. A lot of the things we try to do, like we try not to copy others, and we also are looking for companies that are original, especially early when it's not obvious. Not everybody's saying this is a great product. And so the scary thing about marketing is sometimes you can do everything right. It might still take a while for the product to take off, but being original, being different, it really matters, right? Because you look at some of the things and not everything that has traction, that is taking off is necessarily original. And I do think that that originality and like being first of something, that always doesn't win. But I think being the most original and having the most differentiation definitely makes a difference. And I think marketing amplifies that positioning. So I think that's kind of the ingredient, but you also have to make sure the positioning maps into that so that other people can take advantage of it and be fast followers and, basically negate that advantage.
And one great example, which I think you should think about, is we talk a lot about OpenAI, and they've launched and they use ChatGPT, and everyone is using it. But Anthropic launches, and so they had to launch the Constitution to be different.
Right.
And that is really a marketing tactic, right?
Right,
So
the ethical
this is sort
AI.
of what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Truly, and thank you again.
Thank you, Connie.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Great to see you.